In the Techshed 24 studio, we have one of the other founding members, Tony from Port443.
That's right.
Tony, well, first of all, thank you very much for being a founding member and joining Techshed 24.
It's our privilege, thank you.
Tony, just from the name, I can't tell what you do. Why don't you explain what does your company do and what does the name actually mean?
Thank you. So, firstly, it's not my company. I'm a co-founder with a lady by the name of Maury Louise.
Okay.
And we started the business about 3 years, just a little bit over 3 years ago.
Okay.
Port443 is the secure port that all HTTPS traffic around the world on the internet travels through. So whenever you're doing a online secure search or transaction, it actually traverses via Port443.
Okay.
So by nature, we were fortunate enough to get that
get the
URL.
That's a win by itself.
In and of itself. We do a number of things, but we focus primarily on building automation. So we're a software dev house at heart.
Okay.
We build automations, and what we do is we build automations to validate that the security controls that companies have invested in are configured according to best practice.
Wow. So you test in some fashion to validate.
Correct. Because in theory, what happens is organizations tend to take a set and forget approach. You install it, implement it, configure it, and then over time you get drift. And unless you've got this continuous hardening process, either manual or automated, over a period of time, the efficacy of the cybersecurity controls you've invested heavily in reduces.
Yes. Oh, okay.
Now, do you throw people at that and get them to constantly validate that the configurations and policies, etc., are according to best practice? Which is very difficult to find the skills, and in some respects it's quite mundane to go through all of these checks every week.
I think
you automate it.
And normally when you miss something, that's the breach, that's the problem.
That's the
Somebody didn't look at it is a potential. I think that your business must be growing, because one of the things you find, you mentioned skill shortage, massive.
Yeah.
But also people are moving around a lot more nowadays. So and there's a lot of assumption. I've been noticing that as people move, you take IP with you. What you were doing, what you were checking, somebody else comes along, all of a sudden what was standard is no longer standard.
Correct. So when it comes to cybersecurity, I think people, process and technology got to work hand in hand, I guess more so than many other aspects of the ICT estate. And having accessibility to skills, especially when there's such a plethora of different vendors in a particular client's estate. It's quite unusual that you find the same vendor or two vendors wall to wall across your cloud, your network, your security. You normally have 5, 10, 15 different vendors, and with that comes the complexity of the skills associated with 5, 10 or 15 different vendors and OEMs. What we do on the one hand is ensure that through visibility, you're able to have this continuous validation.
Do is the visibility through a portal, or do you provide backup services? Because I know this question about visibility is quite important. It's very nice to have, like most things, you have visibility.
Yeah.
But there must be somebody in the background to say, what I'm seeing means X.
Correct.
Because you can say, well, there's a cup. But somebody with insight will say, well, that's the wrong cup.
Well, that's a good analogy. I think from a visibility and observability perspective, it's another part of our business that we focus extensively on. Our view is that where organizations have, as I said earlier, a plethora of different technologies within their environment, each one of those technologies have critical metrics and alerts that are being generated on a very frequent basis. And it's quite difficult to keep up with the alerts and the metrics that are being generated by each individual technology unless you're constantly logging in.
Because what happens is you find people ignore, eventually after you get them too much, they stop worrying about it.
Correct. And you don't want to be ignoring anything, right? So what we build are dashboards. We use the term dashboards.
Yes.
And some people use the term single pane of glass.
Yes.
Whereby on that dashboard, you would be able to see all the critical alerts and metrics across the different technologies that you've already invested in. Now, we don't expect human beings to stare at screens the entire day, waiting for something to turn red. So this goes to your point. How do you translate the observability and visibility into actionable outcomes as and when there's a critical alert that needs to be responded to?
Timing is critical here, right? It's not like you can, we had this alert 6 months ago. I think you did.
That's the case. And you need to be able to achieve containment as quickly as possible.
Because I'm sure you're finding a lot of customers, and go back in history, something that happened, they would have been known had they paid attention.
Everybody's got 2020 when they look in the rearview mirror. So looking at a dashboard is one thing. It gives you actionable insight. But what we generally do is we integrate these dashboards with the client's ITSM, with their business processes, and then based on certain thresholds, we'll raise alerts as well, so that the client has the ability to react even when they're not observing the metrics on the dashboard.
What typically for companies or anybody looking out there, what is your typical customer profile look like that you're talking to?
Well, I mean, first and foremost, I think it's an organization that takes cybersecurity seriously. It's an organization that might have outsourced to a number of different partners, yet they, to some extent, are flying blind, if you may. You can't outsource risk.
Yes.
I mean, ultimately, should something go wrong, irrespective of the kind of engagement and contracts you have in place with your third-party providers, you're still ultimately you're responsible for what happens.
Okay.
So I think a typical organization would look one that has multiple technologies within their stack across networking, cloud, and cybersecurity. An organization that takes cybersecurity seriously. An organization that would adhere to principles around corporate governance and compliance, and has a cadence of having to report on what's actually happening. And organizations, they have invested a lot of money on these multiple layers of the onion that they refer to when it comes to cybersecurity, and aren't sure that they're actually getting the maximum benefit out of those investments that they've made. So our business is not about reselling additional technologies and layers.
Get the best out of what you've got.
Of what you've currently invested in. Exactly.
I spoke to Brendan Pronk from Camington, and he was literally, I know you know each other and you hadn't seen each other for a while.
Yeah.
Did you find that yesterday with meeting people that you might not have seen for a long time?
I mean, I started in the industry in 1996, and sometimes you feel quite alone when you go back that far.
Yes.
But last night, the people that I engaged with took me right back there, and it was, of course, Brendan Pronk and a whole host of others as well.
I think that was exciting. I think the one of the biggest benefits we got from yesterday was the amount of people catching up, meeting people they hadn't seen in a while.
Yeah.
And Brendan, by the way, since they'd committed to, if we do this next year again, he's definitely part of it and should have been here, and potentially including these network Wednesday events, potentially network events in Cape Town. So I think it's from that perspective, it was successful.
Well done for pulling this together. I know it's not easy to do, but well done, and I think it's good for organizations of all sizes to be able to afford the kind of platform to provide them with the visibility, the much needed visibility.
No, I think we all do. And I think if we all work together, it's a far better model than all of us doing something alone and trying to do it alone. So I think the model works. I think we proved it this year, and I think that's the nice thing. So everybody's out there, we get a chance, and we're not all competing with each other. It's complementary. As far as I'm concerned, as I said yesterday, business is done by people.
Exactly.
People meeting people, and that's all the Techshed is going to be about.
And even when you do compete, you learn a lot. And it's such a small industry. Your competitors today are your clients tomorrow, or your suppliers the day thereafter.
Yes.
So no, it's our privilege, as I started off by saying, to be one of the founding members of this initiative. So thank you very much.
Fantastic. Listen, thank you very much.